KFGM Ballroom sessions are made possible by generous donations from individuals, businesses, and organizations in our community. If you would like to be involved in supporting local music by donating to this program, please visit 1055kfgm.org, click the Donate Today button, and add a note saying that you'd like to support KFGM Ballroom sessions. Located in Missoula, Montana, Rattlesnake Cable Company makes high-quality guitar cables, microphone cables, low-profile patch cables for your pedal board, line buffers, and more. As musicians, we will spend all the rent on instruments and amps and microphones, often overlooking the importance of good cables to let those instruments shine through. These US-made oxygen-free bare copper cables preserve the high end of your signal, and heavy shielding ensures they are quiet and durable for years of use. Learn more at www.rattlesnakecables.com. Back to the Mother Kombucha is a locally produced party for your taste buds. You can find Back to the Mother Kombucha in stores all over the Five Valleys. Back to the Mother's mission is to seek out every alternative in sustainable practices to show how we, the people of this planet, the stewards of the earth, can live abundant, healthy lives in a manner that sustains the earth for generations to come. We may not know exactly what that looks like, but we are here to start the conversation. We are changing the dialogue about how ordinary people can change the world. Like their Facebook page to keep up with updates and events, and find out more at www.backtothemother.earth.
You are listening to 105.5 KFGM, streaming live at 105.5 on your FM dial, kfgm.org.
was cool, guys.
It was very cool.
Glad you guys didn't have anything else to do on a beautiful Sunday Memorial Day weekend.
Nothing. On that note, let's do a little bit of clerical stuff just to clear up where we are and what we're doing.
I like that idea.
If you are in audio land right now, you have tuned into the KFGM Ballroom sessions, or as my friend Al Pills and I are calling them, the Statler and Waldorf sessions, because we feel a little bit like the old guys on the Muppet Show whose job is to sit around and heckle.
Statler and
with
Waldorf,
beer.
that's the name.
Sunday, May 27th, early in the afternoon, a beautiful day outside and also uncommonly comfortable inside Union Hall, which is not something that we usually associate with musical events at Union Hall.
Yep.
Right? Al, help me
Most
paint this
certainly.
picture. Help me paint this picture.
It's pretty dreamy up here.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot
nice.
tell a lie.
Yep.
I'm just trying to figure out who's Statler and who's Waldorf.
I forgot.
That was great. That was okay.
Talk about a face made for radio. Yeah, well, here we are. Maybe we should make some other introductions. I'm Andy Smetanka, a.k.a. Statler, right, for today anyway. Sitting next to me is Al Pills, a.k.a. Waldorf, and seated directly in front of us, as though getting ready to defend a musical thesis, is Mass FM. And fellas, would you please go around and introduce yourselves by name, instrument, and throw me something. A turn on, a turn off,
My name's Doug Smith. I play guitar in Mass FM, and I love Brazilian music.
All right. I'm Chris Bacon. I play keyboards in Mass FM, and I'm a skateboarding Virgo.
Skateboarding, Virgo. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate the Zodiac sign shout out.
Christopher Bauman, bass, Taurus. Happy to be recorded and not recording. I love recording bands, but I also love to be recorded. I feel fond of it.
Ryan Weingart on drums for Mass FM. I am also happy to be behind a drum set as opposed to my regular desk job behind a bar. So it's nice to be here.
All right. What kinds of memories do you, or what kinds of associations do you have with Union Hall? I mean, just about every, it's not a real common venue for a Missoula band to play, but just about everybody plays here at least once.
Yeah.
I think about Green Day, seeing them up here a long time ago. Recently, a Dead Meadows show was really good. We're having
We
a little
played
bit,
that show.
Played that show.
Yeah, we opened this show.
Yeah, a little bit of electrical interference tonight, and I feel like somewhere in this building there's always like a ghostly cover version of Mustang Sally floating around, right?
Probably.
What else? I mean,
I saw Bauman's first band, The Invaders, here.
Yeah, I mean, I've played tons and tons of shows here.
Yeah.
First time was opening for AFI, I believe.
That's pretty cool.
On the Very Proud of You tour.
Yeah.
Thank you, John Fleming.
I was in a rap band that opened up for, I think, Calvin Johnson.
I was totally at that
Dub
show. That was Dub
Narcotic
Narcotic.
Sound System. That was
I
kinda
wish I
weird.
would have caught your rap band. That's something that
It was actually
that's a thought
super,
that I have
super
right
awesome.
now.
every time I walk down these stairs,
Exactly.
every time I walk down to street level, I think of seeing a young Billy Joe Armstrong. Was that the Green Day guy? Billy
Yeah.
Joe Armstrong. He looked like he was about 15 years old, walking upstairs with his guitar in one hand.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
before Green Day got super huge. I mean,
They
they're still
played up here?
playing places like Union Hall.
We did a show with Board of Missoula up here where we brought a bunch of little ramps and rails, and skated up here. And then I played a solo show where I played piano and then guitar, and then I smashed my guitar. And then we had another actual band play after that, but I can't remember who it was. But I think we might have damaged the floor a little bit back then, maybe.
I'm amazed. Firstly, I know, Andy, you would probably... It looks the same in here, right?
Absolutely.
Like, exactly the same.
Totally unchanged.
The first show I did see up here was actually Andy's band.
Oh, yeah.
Humpy. I snuck out of my 8th grade graduation party early so I could come down
Good
and
call.
Well,
see Andy.
For me, I'll just say that this is one of the venues that I associate with some untimely incontinence while belting out those high notes in Humpy. This is definitely one of those few places.
The first show I saw in Missoula was up here. It was Spurge.
Yes, yes, sure.
And there was a little mosh pit going, and Natasha Massman was here. She was a goth girl that I kind of thought was cute or whatever, and I was dancing around, and Mike Vanacek pants me in front of her, and I was
And now
a
they're
little
married.
bit embarrassed, yeah.
What year was that, Chris?
That would have been 91. Yeah, I moved here in 91, so it was either 91 or 92, but...
Way to put the timeline on there,
all,
big guy.
all the old feels.
Well, good. I mean, we've all got like a little bit of history in this place, at least. So that gives us maybe a good end to talk about the brief history of Mass FM. It's a little bit difficult to discuss Mass FM without talking first about, of course, Volumen, right?
How do you spell that? I can't. Really
La 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 la.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yep.
Still got
Okay,
it.
it was at the Zach, not here, where I saw a Volumen cover band and they didn't even know your old phone number from like the song they were supposed to be
That was-
covering.
With
What
all
was
due
that
respect, that was a
for?
little rough.
What was that?
Don't know.
What was that
Wait,
for?
someone did a volume and cover band?
It was
Yeah, it was.
It was a cover band
They've
show.
been
at the
studying
Zach.
for about 5 minutes, I
I
think.
think,
Yeah.
we like Key and I and Jerry Potasic did Oblio Joe's.
Right.
And I was so excited to see
Yeah.
this.
Somebody did Boys, the
Volume
band that's on my
Right.
shirt right now for the
Anyway.
listeners.
Well, let's not
Yeah.
dwell on that. Half of Mass FM consists of previous members of Volumen. What do you guys reckon you brought with you from Volumen to this new band? I can name a couple things, but let's hear you, Sam.
No,
Well,
I guess
obviously keyboards and the same similar 50% of the songwriting, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Doug and I maybe have always kind of had a way of playing together, so I think that has come along from Volume In, but I'd like to think that we maybe twisted it a little bit or, sort of morphed it a little bit.
Yeah, in fact, there are places on Volumen recordings where I can't really tell where guitar ends and where keyboard begins because you're playing such closely twinned lines.
Yeah.
You guys have that kind of...
Yeah,
Exactly.
we've always kind of liked that.
We've kind of called it guitarmonies.
Yeah.
Like
Guitarmonies.
Guitar.
Circle T.
We did it in the first song. And
As one of the guys who wasn't in Volume, and one of the best things about these two guys having played so much music together is that their harmonies, their thought process, their flow has been, it's been going for, I don't know, tell me, how many years? How many years you guys have been playing together?
That in 99 when I jumped
99.
into the Squares.
Yeah, a long, long
Or,
time. And it shows when they write and sing together, and I feel awesome to be in a band with these two guys and with Chris Bauer.
I feel the same way. Being, Volumen were the most popular band in a college town where the most popular band in a college town typically doesn't sound like proggy Devo.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I know that the songwriting in Volumen was like always a collaborative effort, and everyone threw their bit in. But I always kind of think of Doug and another former Volumen member, Shane Hickey, as being kind of like the Lennon McCartney or like the Steve
Absolutely.
Turner, Mark Arm of like Missoula pop rock.
I would
Basically.
most definitely agree with that.
So I'm always interested in what happens to bands where there are two really strong songwriters who seem to be kind of keeping each other in check or always upping the game on each other, very often working together, but that kind of are subtly trying to, top each other maybe, or it just keeps the quality very high. And then when one of them is suddenly gone from the picture, it's interesting to see how those band members progress into different things. I'm thinking of Volumen here, but I'm also thinking of Husker Du. And when Husker Du broke up, these two songwriters that had always kept each other in a sort of check. One went on to be very sort of butch and brisk and no nonsense in his pop songwriting, talking about Bob Mould now. And then Grant Hart became like he got to give run to his most florid, songwriting instincts and so forth. So I'm wondering what you feel like you are recently freed up to do now that now that it's Mass FM and not Volumen, for example. Have there things that you've been sitting on? I mean, is Dried Arrangements going to make a comeback?
No.
It's an inside joke there.
I think, yeah,
Radio land.
that's funny. I think there was always that play of like, I feel like I kind of tend to write maybe darker songs and downer songs where Shane's more like really witty, funny, poppier songs. So that I think was a great play in Volumen, but now it's, I think there's that check or balance is not there to kind of be like, what if we wrote a funnier version of that kind of thing?
Well, in some ways, Shane nowadays as a performer is a model of economy because he's kind of been scavenging the roadsides of Pop Music USA with a ukulele and different projects like
Yes.
that.
Stick
Which is
bands
very,
about-
very to the point. And I've been
Yeah.
thinking that your songwriting and the way that Mass FM sounds compared to Volumen, if you can say that, is a bit more asymmetrical. It doesn't always come back to like the catchy chorus with the next verse and so on. It's just a little bit more I don't want to say amoeba-like, but it's not really, chorus, verse,
Well, and I think,
rigidly as it used to
right,
be.
and I think that's super fun, and it's great to incorporate like Bauman and Dreamer in that equation, because it's like, okay, I got a song, I don't really know what to do with it, and Bauman's like, well, tell me about the song. Where do you want to go with this song? And I'm like, I don't know. That's why I got you in my band.
Verbatim last Tuesday night. Well, where do you want to go?
Help me out. So it's like great to like, well, here's the 4 chords I got, and then spit it out to these guys, and they're like, oh, let's mold it into this
Yeah, it's
Must
kind
be
of
kind of
unconventional
fun
thing.
kind of
Not
like
write
bringing.
about time machines and video games too.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't feel like Orson Welles is looking over your shoulder whenever
Yeah.
you have to write a pop song. Well, we're going to let you get back to it. I guess we'll have a couple more questions when we come back. And you, Dreamer, Ryan, and
Yes.
Bauman, we're not trying to exclude you with a bunch
Oh,
of
no.
volume-related questions. We're just kind of
It's
getting to the
important.
heart of the matter.
I think it's very. I mean, one of the biggest. I got heart flutters when I got the call from Doug that they were looking for a bass player. I was like, wait, I'm going to play in a band with 2 of the dudes from Volume Man? Like,
Okay.
I mean, that's a
And
big
neither
deal.
of them
That's a
are
big
Hickeys,
deal.
so
That's a big deal to me. I love those dudes too, but yeah.
Ari, you hold that thought, Mr. Bauman, because
Absolutely.
we're going to discuss in short order. You guys want to play
Sounds
another
good.
tune now? And if so, would you tell us what it's going to be?
What do we got up there, Duggins?
Steely Dawn. it
Steely
looks
Dawn.
Should we do that one? Cool.
Funny story too about this song. We'll get to that.
Don't forget your way out. Light gets cut in minutes, amazing. It's hard to make believe, or make a believer out of me. You got to tread and trace new ground. You're about to get gone alone again. You're about to get down and gone again. I push my way to the front. Through the thicket valleys and over the buffalo jaw. It's hard to make believe, or make a believer out of me. Hot-headed head goes before you know it's steely dawn. You're about to get gone alone again. You're about to get down and gone again, gone again. Hard-headed echo before you know it's steely dawn. Beach Street man, take a ride on the bus. Crystal Ball didn't know who he was. He's got a ticket to somewhere, so he keeps on riding, keeps on riding. Don't say it ain't so, don't say it ain't so bad. Oh, this time. to get pissed when you rained out the sun. Decide to get robbed when all you had was none. So don't you think about your loss, and don't you think about your wishes. Now these clapping hands turn to close-fisted. Whispers lay a tongue. This is rule number one. This is rule of thumb. This is rule of thumb. In a trance, and then you speak in tongues spoken, thoughts on a wheel, that a tongue get broken. A week for a treat for a trader. Go to bed now and forget no later. Whispers lay a tongue. This is rule number one. This is rule of thumb. This is rule of thumb. Whispers lay a tongue. This is rule number one. This is rule of thumb. This is rule of thumb. Some big drums.
That was super fun.
Pretty sure Zeppelin 4 was recorded up here.
Oh,
That was my
Deep
sound
cuts
check
here.
song forever.
Yeah, right?
I would just do
It
it
still
to
is.
annoy Justin.
Did you lock eyes with him when you do that too?
I actually did.
Stare into his one good
Coming
eye.
Yeah,
down the
because he was
mountain.
like, "Stop playing that addiction song," which
like-
guaranteed that I played it till the last time I played it. Jazz. And then the other one I would do was like the I don't even know if I remember how to play it.
Oh, 3 days.
All right.
Nice.
Somebody light some candles.
Eric Avery's
do you guys have a string breaking tune? Like when something goes gunny bag and three members have to occupy themselves while one person scrambles around fixing something?
Yeah, so what do you,
that.
what do you
It's kind of
guys
a
do
kind
when
of a
Doug
tradition.
changes strings?
Could we call it gunny bag?
Well, we
This
don't.
I haven't heard that
We've
word
never,
since I don't know,
luckily,
1870.
don't
1870.
don't curse us, but I don't think that's ever happened.
Really?
Time travel.
We are good at jamming. So
Fire-
whoever is like unavailable, we can kind of fill in while they're doing their thing, which tends to be Doug. Just so.
So
That's
beer
usually me,
barrel
actually.
polka.
So many buttons, so many
I just
buttons.
wrote-
Roll
I read-
out the barrel.
Doug's adventures in alternate tuning,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
where it's like,
that
oh,
slope sounds slippery.
Forgot to retune that guitar. Sorry about that.
Drop Doug tuning.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. I like that.
Okay, are we all
this
back
one's
at
in
this?
drop Doug.
All right, we're back.
Are we back here?
And we're back.
Okay, gang members out there in audio land, welcome back to the KFGM Ballroom Sessions, subsession 1.0, the Statler and Waldorf sessions with Mass FM. The session, as always, is produced by Matt Olson, and your hosts today are myself, Andy Smetanka, aka Was I Statler or Waldorf? I forget.
You were Statler.
I think you were Statler.
Okay,
You
and
had me
Al
at
Pills,
Rusty.
a.k.a. Waldorf. Al, paint a picture for us. What is going on here?
It's a dreamy affair up here, no pun intended. The
That's
weather
the second
is
time.
fantastic. The air is flowing. The drums sound like the Bonham mix on Zeppelin 4, and I'm all about it. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm here to drink all your beers and insult you gently, one at a time.
Ryan, quote, dreamer, end quote, Weingart.
Yes, sir.
Clear this up for our listening audience. Were you a dreamer? Were you dreamer in your native Indiana, or did you only become dreamer when you came to Missoula and started dreaming it up around here?
Well, to be honest, I
Tell us,
was
Big Shot.
I was Steamer before Dreamer. Yeah, there's always a lineage of nicknames, and luckily I gave myself none of the nicknames I've ever had.
You're not
That's,
allowed to give yourself a nickname, are you?
that's
No, it never
true.
works. It never works.
It's true.
Remember
it
that
doesn't
like
work.
one guy in the dorm freshman year that tries
Yeah.
to like, my nickname's Turbo.
I'm cool.
I've tried to start
yeah.
calling myself the kid in the third person just to see if anyone else will follow along.
Yeah.
No.
The Dreamer
Laugh.
nickname is just something that's stuck since like 2007 from a previous band.
Yeah, that
I'm
was
still
it.
Dreamer in my wife's phone, which I've asked her to change, but she
Aw.
won't. Yeah, it's cute, isn't it?
Are you trying to shed this nickname?
I'm not trying to shed this nickname, but I don't.
Why on earth would you?
Who cares, right? Like, I didn't do it. I just.
You can't
I'm
fight
more,
it, right?
I am more likely to answer in a crowd of people to Dreamer than I am to Ryan because everyone born in 1981 is named Ryan.
Yeah, right.
Or Chris.
Right.
Or Chris.
Yeah, that's why I go by
Yeah.
Christopher.
I think about this when all of our kids get together. It's like a freaking biblical, like a Quaker whaling convention. Caleb 1, Caleb 2, Asa, Silas, August, Simon. Time to get back on the
I back in
Mayflower.
you fourth.
Everybody sit down. I'm going to trim your beards.
Now go help Jedediah.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
Shuck the corn.
Yeah.
So
Let's
glad
raise
I
this
named
barn.
my kids what I did.
Well, okay, so speaking of kids, I'd like to shed a little bit of light on bass player Christopher Bauman at this point. Christopher Bauman, active in the Missoula music scene since he was 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And one of the more noteworthy beneficiaries of the legendary Jay's Upstairs Gifted Young Rocker Youth or Mentorship Program, or
Yes.
JUG-ERP for short. We've been talking about this a lot. Just how great it was that well, tell us a little bit about it in your own words, sir. Playing at Jay's Upstairs when you're 15 years old, what do you have to do?
Well, we were playing a show here at the Union Hall for John Fleming, and Tribe 8 was playing at Jay's, and there was no opener. So Justin Lawrence came and picked us up in his decrepit station wagon,
Ooh.
moved our gear over. Our parents had dropped the gear off for
Right.
this show earlier, and then
Did you make them drop you off at the end of the block, like pretending you didn't have parents?
No. I actually think my dad helped us load in, and then he had to chaperone us later that night. At,
Well, I
at
remember that
Jay's.
there was always like one youth chaperone for
Yep.
your band Absolute there, and I might be wrong about this, but in my mind, I feel like everyone tried to kind of, tuck their mixed drinks and cigarettes behind their backs and
Yep.
do a little bit of extra Eddie Haskell when your parents were
was
around.
super polite, and it worked out well because I think we did three shows there where we had to have a chaperone, and then Robin was like, "All right, you guys are cool."
Yeah.
Like, so I think you vouched for us too, so that was a big help.
Yeah, co-signed the loan on your your amp and everything. No. Well, so I mean, as it happens, now you are the mastermind at Black National Recording.
Yes.
And another thing that we've been talking about a lot lately, with 25-year reunion shows in the air, and like a lot of, just a froth of musical monkey shines going on at your studio these days. One thing that we've been talking about too is how unfun and scary recording used to feel, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, do you guys remember being seriously under the gun? Like, oh, we're paying for this, like down to the last minute,
Yep.
We did some like nervous drinking last night before recording, and now someone's too hungover and blah blah blah. But like, you felt like, you felt like you had to really be on edge and get it right the first time.
But in my experience, it used to be that the guys who had recording studios and had that kind of gear, because at that point it was DAT tapes and all of this like crazy, like they call it prosumer now. So you could buy, like, you can be a professional consumer and just buy the stuff off the internet. But back then, owning a DAT machine was only for people who like made very real recordings. And the biggest thing I remember is they were just like, you can't do that.
Right.
Like, can we get more distortion on that? Like, no.
But no, I think that's a funny segue into why. I mean, Black Nashville is super fun to record at because it's it's casual and it's fun.
It's a hang.
It's
It's a hang.
But I remember Volume and being on tour and going to like Louder Studios with Tim Green from the effing Champs and being like, oh, my guitar's out of tune and like, oh, and Tim Green, who's like a guitar god, like, you don't know how to tune a guitar? Oh, you
Was
don't know how
very
to string it?
intimidating.
Oh, it's super intimidating.
Yeah, getting guitar
oh,
tuning
Jesus
lessons from
Christ.
the guy in the Champs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh god, why are we here?
He always had there was always this awkward silence too with him, where he would just kind of be there at the controls, and
How was that guitar
Was it
solo?
like-
That was a guitar solo.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So
With all due
Awesome.
respect,
Thanks
I
for
love
the
Tim
guy.
Green.
Yeah.
I'm not whatever, but
this is what I'm getting at, and I think a lot of people who work on film sets will tell you the same thing. Now that the media is basically inexhaustible and cheap,
Yep.
you don't feel quite as on point and like, oh, we got to get this right.
it's the best.
So
Well, unless you're a drummer, because it turns out you still have to be pretty on time with that stuff.
Well, since we're talking about Volume and specifically like the Cries from Space, Tim Green, Louder Studios,
Yep.
you guys had to just get in there and get it done.
Yeah.
Whereas Science Faction, which came afterwards, you guys were totally left to your own devices, home recording studios. I bet it took longer than you imagined.
Yep.
And I bet you have some regrets, like, man, we were just too close to that thing to make certain decisions. So where is the
yeah.
sweet spot? You've got this great hang.
This is a sweet
the guy
spot.
In the guy.
Yes.
Well,
It's like let's get a guy in the band who has a studio. No wait, that was
Love
an
him,
afterthought.
hug him.
But that's been
Nurture
great
him.
because there is that balance of like, okay, yeah, let's. We got some time, but there's still an outside. I don't know, Bauman feeling. You
Well-
do it so much that you're like, okay, that's good. I know we could like microscope this thing to
Sure.
death, but that's fine. Let's
Which-
move on.
I never microscope. I do, but I don't. It's more about the feeling, the overall feeling, the vibe,
Yeah.
the hang.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
and
Since Bauman's name is on it, he's not going to be like, oh, that's good enough. But it's not
Right,
going to.
sure.
but also not Mutt Langen and things where like
Mutt
just deep-
Langen.
We're not going to like Kevin
Y'all have heard
Shields.
his
I think
stereo,
that's in
right?
The
my
My
that's in my
Bloody
gangster rapper
Valentine.
rhyming dictionary for.
Yeah,
for
we Mutt Langen.
We all be Mutt Langen.
He was known for doing 24 layers of vocals when that
Kevin
was
Shields.
no Mutt Lang. I mean
Oh,
that
Mutt
was a
Langen,
time when it was 24-inch tape or like 2-inch 24-track tape machines, and they would have to lash like 4 of them together.
Jesus.
So, what are in the studio? What are some recording schemes or favorite albums that you have in mind as you try to craft your own? We were talking about like Leslie speakers, with the
Sure.
the oscillating thing.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Oford, who used to record for Yes, would have like one microphone that was being swung around the room to try to to pick
Yeah.
things up like
Yeah.
in quadraphonic plus.
Steve Albini.
Steve
I'll just,
Albini?
Butch Vig and Steve Albini.
Okay, now Steve Albini is shorthand for what as a
For-
producer?
Like transparency or do you mean
Well, he's not a guy to fuss over
No.
a recording. He's like, I'm turning this thing on, and you guys are hanging yourself or
a
rocking.
conduit is kind of what he sees himself as just as an engineer. Like one of the descriptions is like, if I were a plumber and I fix your pipe, I'm not part of your toiletry setup. I just did a job and I was done. And so he doesn't consider himself a producer, but
He's a guy who turns down royalties. Like when he's
does.
offered
Exactly,
royalties
yeah.
on recordings, he's like, nope,
Love that.
that's not me. I don't want that.
Wow.
Why would I
Yeah.
want that?
Yeah. If I fixed your house 10 years ago, should I? And it's still
should I
standing?
still be getting paid?
Paid?
Yeah,
That makes
that
no sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Solid guy.
Rare type. Rare type.
But yes, that is so Nevermind and In Utero that's how I try to make records and why I try to make records, and that's the simplest answer, I guess.
Okay, before we get back to the music, let's talk a little bit more about your late 2017 release, Punkneek. What does the title Punkneek sum up to you? Like, that's a proceed for something, but
Yeah,
what?
yeah. So I don't want to mention names, but a good friend of mine went through a change, as a person. And I just was like super proud of him, and I was just like, well, it's punk in its own way. I mean, and you can kind of go on to, categorize it, whatever, or describe, use that word as a description for, oh, you're punk neat. You're doing what you got to do. I think that's kind of the origin of punk, is just do whatever the F you want. Mm-hmm. And that kind of was the inspiration for the song. But when the album came out, we're kind of floating around names, and Bauman's like, well, Punk Neek is a great, catchy name or thing. And Bauman did the artwork, and super proud of it.
10 songs, 12 songs on Punk Neek?
10?
10.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we cut 4.
The big thing for me for Punk Neek is I liked how it's a punk technique, as in do your own thing, or sort of that calling somebody out for, it's like poser, like, oh, you and your punk neek, like as a
Yeah, interesting.
I really love that it was recorded in multiple places.
Yeah.
Multiple iterations of Black National Studios being born
3.
through Chris Bauman's eyes. Yeah, right. 3?
3 of them.
Is that right? 3.
Is that right?
So
Yeah.
3 different spots
2015
with
and-
evolving technique, with evolving
cool.
writing.
Right.
It's just, I don't know, I hold it close to my heart.
I
I
think
think
it's
we all do because
do
of
as
the
well.
fact that it went through these different spots, not only like in this linear timeline, but in different physical spots that it was recorded. And they have a little bit of difference, but it all
Yes.
goes together like an album.
And that, the middle,
is.
the middle part was recorded at the now, like, losing its lease to gentrification, though. Has that ever been a real term in Missoula? But the downtown space was one of the studios we recorded it at.
Oh, yeah.
But also that was a room with a piss bucket.
Well, let's hear something from this
Actually,
recorded
Punk
document.
Neek is
play
next
Punk
up on the
Neek?
list. Yeah, that's on the list. It's in parentheses, but
Let's do it.
this is actually one of my favorite songs. I do love them all.
Right? Give up your rights, but don't take this wrong. Sometimes vibes just don't belong, and I don't sweat it. Some people just don't get it. You lead the scene, but don't watch your back. You spit blood, and as a matter of fact, I don't sweat it. Some people just don't get it. All the ribbons, alright, you're losing. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. Who called your name? You took the number, then you got straight. Last of the man. You're punk weak. Unluckily, only so many Johns be worried about your baby. That's all the saying. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. Who called your name? You took a number, then you got straight. Last of the man. You're punk neek.
Right.
Sorry.
That was awesome. Not only was that fun to hear, it was fun to watch Chris work his spit shield around the talk box tube.
Okay, Al, when we first rolled up, I got excited because I thought that Chris Bacon was installing some sort of keg system on his microphone stand
Right?
with the plastic tubing. But what are we seeing and hearing instead? It's not a keg, turns out. What is it?
No, it's like the love child of Peter Frampton and a keg tube. Yeah, I'd say it's a straight up talk box there. Chris, can you tell us a little bit more about that
What it is.
hose-like
It's the,
device?
Dirty hose I rub my mouth on while making sounds.
Gross.
Well,
Man.
I got to thinking that I guess I've never actually watched Peter Frampton using the talk box, but you look
And
like
thank
you're
goodness for that.
You look like you're about to get a root canal because of how you have to hold your head when you sing into it. Like,
Yeah,
what's the story? What's the technique?
Well, you
how
kinda-
did you first tame this crazy Framptonian undertaking here?
It was something I just kind of wanted to try. I had messed with some vocorders and stuff, and that was kind of fun. But I thought this was a little more leaning itself towards the sound I'm going for with this band. And yeah, so I just got one and then just started to mess with it and try to figure it out. But yeah, you really have to kind of get up on it, and it captures everything you're doing with your mouth, so you make your cheeks bigger, you change your shape, the shape of your mouth, whatever, and then it's a note that's coming through one of the keyboards being projected through this tube and bouncing off of your mouth back into the microphone.
Can you give us like a with and without? Like hold your head the way you have been doing and make one of those notes that gets sweetened up by the talk box, and then do it into the talk box so we can hear a compare and
Okay,
Please
contrast.
make it sound like the beginning of Sweet Emotion.
So this is me talking.
Vibra
and-
slap. That's Vibra slap, right?
And then this is me just playing with the talk box on, but my mouth isn't on it. And then now.
Johnny used to work on the docks. He's down on his luck.
What was that?
So tough.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't
So-
remember that one, but
I think any
But just sing what you do with the tube just into the mic.
without
what
without
do-
playing.
Without
Yeah,
playing.
yeah, that
like,
note.
what are you doing with your mouth?
really?
Man, that is sexy.
Isn't it crazy?
I feel like any jaw harp players in the audience are going to understand how that
Yeah.
works, right? It seems
Yeah,
kind of similar.
absolutely.
I
Like
would
you
think
have
so.
to.
It does.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Luckily,
Yeah.
there's just one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Luckily.
definitely kind of a weird thing.
I
Like,
feel uncomfortable right now.
You should.
On the dark side.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Eddie.
Just
Yeah.
rounding that out a little
Yeah.
bit for you.
Yeah.
Rounding that out.
thank you.
No, thank you. That was fascinating.
You know, and speaking of sound you're going for, one of the things I like about watching you guys, or more appropriately listening to you guys, is that I feel like one of the sounds that you may or may not be intentionally going for is sort of a Spartan feel as far as like note playing. Christopher, I noticed that in your bass playing right away. Somebody asked me to describe your bass playing, I would have to say he plays all the right notes.
Thank you.
And none more. And I really appreciate that. As with you, Dreamer, I feel like that adds to your thing. It gets to the point a little quicker.
Well, and Bauman and I are regularly making sexy eyes at each other on stage,
But not?
But not. It's cool.
To those of you in Radio Land, that's really something.
It is something.
My
It's
underwear
just
is
rhythm
smoldering
section.
right now.
it's really great to play in a rhythm section with a bass player who has his stuff together and gets it and doesn't overdo it. It doesn't have to be a 6-string bass with slap and crap. You
Right.
know what I mean?
He's no
He
Chris
plays-
Squire from Yes, in other words.
But he plays
A hero
the
of
big
mine, yes,
notes
but-
that need to be there that move the song,
Right.
and sometimes that change the song. And I appreciate playing with him for that.
Probably makes you a great recording engineer as well.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Is I think that's one of his biggest talents is that he's able to find that thing in each song, and each part really a lot of the time where it's like, okay, it just needs this.
Less is
you
more.
know?
Simplicity
Yeah.
is always big.
Yeah.
I always say my motto, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and in 2018, I feel like listening is a bit of a lost art in general
Sure.
in the world that we're living in, and sonically with the musical landscape as well.
Well, yeah, actually, that's what are like the prospects for like a new album in 2017, 2018?
We
it
have-
may or may not
we have
exist in a physical format.
Yes,
It
yes,
may be
yes.
a Bandcamp release. Like, what do you aspire to?
We have a 4-song EP that is just about done. That's going to sound exactly like you think it will. As in, it's like the next level for it. The songs are better. Doug had taken a lot of. Doug is the chief songwriter. I don't know if we got that out of the way, but his songs became more focused and more interesting and more kind of like button pushing, which I really like about Doug's songs. Is they're challenging but they're. I think I told Andy one time. Doug has never met a hook that he doesn't like. Like Doug makes the catchiest weird stuff, and it's awesome.
Okay, let us. We're going to come back to that presently. If you guys want to play another tune, I'll just say that prior to this, we heard the title track "Punkneek" from their 2017 Mass FM release, Punkneek, and then before that, for you audio scavengers out there, we heard a back-to-back rock block of Steely Dawn, Waxwing, and Rule of Thumb. That must have been about 45 minutes ago. Of course, it'll seem a little bit different when it's all, sweetened for radio. That's show business for Ad Sugar 2. So we're going to talk about Doug, songwriting, and those other sort of touchy-feely things, but let's hear another tune first, let's say.
Yep.
Statler.
This is another one from
Whose side are
the
you on?
Punkneek record.
Whose side?
Yep.
Yeah.
Whose side?
Whose side are you on?
This is the one song that everybody's like, that bass line is so bizarre.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But Doug can also, actually the whole band can attest to the fact that I never remember how to actually play it. So we'll
Don't
see
curse-
how we'll
don't
see
curse
how we
yourself.
Well, that's fun.
Wow. Right, ready?
Is there anyone you can talk to? Someone who won't showcase your blame. After all, it's our loudest voice that renders whose side you're on. Whose side you're on. When I feel electric, but without the ground, and nothing shocking, my square is round. So whose side are you on? Whose side are you on?
crowd went wild. Absolutely wild.
That's one of my favorite songs.
That was great, you guys.
That's a dazzler, fellas. That's
That was
a dazzler.
great.
It's my ode to dream pop, shoegaze.
All right. It's Shoegaze Days here at the KFGM Ballroom Sessions. Doug, I don't know if this joke's going to make the radio, but I'd like to share it with you.
Okay.
Why did the 80-year-old man flash the florist?
Well, I was pretty tired at the time, and I don't know why.
He wanted to show her his dried arrangement. Okay.
Ouch.
I make this poor quality joke as a way of discussing dried arrangements, right?
God, really?
I know that you don't like going down this road, but this
Tell
is
me
exactly
more.
what I'm getting at. Sort of a mid-period Doug Smith, or perhaps early-period composition called, now hang on, I'm going somewhere with this, honestly, called dried arrangements, which I always use as sort of the template of, well, it just seems like as a songwriter and lyricist, there are a few places that you dare not go. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, and I don't think it was actually called dried arrangements. There
It
was
is in
a
my
line.
mind, so that's how it's
Yeah,
going to be.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
There was a line that said dried arrangements are
Got
so
that,
romantic,
that's fine.
and I was trying to be sarcastic.
And also lovely. They do look lovely.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it was. I think it was a early pre-volume song that I wrote.
Okay.
About like, it's kind of embarrassing. Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love.
Really?
Oh, just like tumultuous relationships and whatever.
Okay.
They seem to have that.
Sid and Nancy.
Sid and Nancy, that whole thing.
Okay, well, I don't
Anyway.
mean to like browbeat you about dried arrangements.
No,
although,
I
as
couldn't
I say,
play it if I
is-
tried.
It's going to be that way
Cool.
in my mind,
It
and
should.
so that is how it is.
'Cause
But
there-
what I'm getting at is, are there places that you can't or won't go as a lyricist, as a singer songwriter? Are there things that you're like just out
Well,
of
yes.
principle or out of oversaturation in the efforts of others? Are there places that you just won't dabble with?
I really am down on the obvious. I'm not a great lyricist as far as like writing a song and poetry or whatever. So the obvious is just really, I mean, I have to like, I'm more stream of consciousness, and then the stream of consciousness I think has its place as far as like, oh, well, this is a reflection of what you're going to write. And so you have to kind of like, eventually it will fall into a category or a box. And oh yeah, that was a snapshot of the last year, so it came out there. But I'm not going to sit down and like, walking down the street, I saw this and that. It's just like, that's cheesy
Well,
to me. So I, leave it to the imagination and blah blah blah.
Okay, well, I mean, I know you long enough, and I've been listening to your bands long enough to recognize at least a sprinkling of autobiography in a lot of the songs. You
Like
know,
a storytelling sort of thing.
storytelling, or like almost like invoking a private joke. In certain volume in songs,
Sure.
it's like, haha. If you hear it, like the lyric can fly under. It can pass for anybody, but if you know you, then you're like, oh yeah, right, that one night, that one story, Doug.
a little
told me.
non sequitur inside humor.
Yes.
Orange elbows.
Orange elbows, or the vacuum cleaner with a mouth for a hose, or was it a hose for a mouth?
Are you pretty ruthless with yourself? Like reviewing work before you even bring it to these other guys? Or do you sort of like let their
I
reaction shake out?
No, it's like, okay, I got a song, kind of a dreamy thing or a stream of consciousness. You guys help me form it into something dreamer kind of thing.
I agree. I think that Doug comes with these ideas regularly, like a panther prancing in his cage.
It's not prancing, it's pacing.
Prancing.
Pacing. Well, he
Prancing
might prance.
panther.
Actually, he might prance.
He might prance. But he comes with
While
these
pacing.
ideas,
The
and
prancing panther.
and they're
Say
so.
that 3 times.
Some of them are so adolescent, but some of them are so like totally built and ready to go. And he gives himself a lot less credit for those ones that are built and ready to go, where he just brings it and drops it on a Tuesday night when we rehearse, and it comes together that night, and we're all like, oh, holy shnikes,
Yeah.
we just wrote another, that's a song. It's done.
Here come the
All
hits.
we have to do now is make it a Mass FM song and give it that polish that we enjoy. But you bring, you always bring ideas. You bring a lot more that I think are fully formed than you think.
Yeah.
Well, and I personally love your lyrics because I feel like the more you listen to them, you get different parts of them. So it's almost like rewatching a movie or something where you're like, oh, I never really got that part.
Yeah.
And especially, being in a band and then recording, there's always like, oh, I had no idea you said that or whatever. You can hear more.
Yeah.
You know, so,
So
it's always
like,
really fun.
what did you think I said? Oh, I thought you said murdered on the. I'm like, I like that better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like, so sometimes they will take a
that's
twist.
happened a number of times. Where you're like, oh yeah,
Let's
I
play that
thought you were
backwards.
saying that there, and you're like, oh, actually that works.
That's cool.
Like let's let's
Right.
use that one
Right.
and then use that one.
So like Steely Dan.
Steely Dan.
was not. I mean, that was not my idea. But these guys had this inside joke.
It's based on one chord that you play that's a jazz chord, and I'm like, this is a Steely Dan chord, and you're like,
Yep.
I hate Steely Dan. I'm like, I love Steely Dan.
Yeah.
And then I don't know.
Something
Well,
happened
we
and it was
were-
like Steely Dan.
We
Well,
were
'cause
talking
I was
about
like,
it
well,
that
that's-
night.
the way this song
Yeah.
opens,
That was
it
right when
feels-
Walter Becker died as
Oh,
well.
that's what it was.
Walter
Okay.
Becker had died that week.
And we're like, we got to do an ode to.
But
and
there's like a tonal quality to the song too, where it
Doug
feels like the sun rising
Yeah.
to me. So I was like Steely Dan.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, as far as lyrics go, I mean, that's a great song because it's super quick and it's about just, you know, like life changes and when I moved out to Missoula and like pushed my way to the front and over the hills and through the stagnant air and the buffalo jump. And then next thing you know, it's
Wow,
like,
you did a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, next thing you know, you're up all night on something and then it's a Steely Dan.
The cliche cup runneth over.
Well, okay, so
you too, Al.
at the other end, back to Christopher Bauman, a veteran of many Missoula bands, quite a few Portland bands. You lived in Portland for about 6.5 years. Is that right?
4 years.
4 years. But like we're never very far from Missoula when it
No.
came to touring and coming back and so on.
It was. I mean, these were always the shows.
Right.
These were our hometown shows.
Right.
Like we would play in Portland, but not like we played in Missoula.
Right.
And actually, the Union Hall is one, and I have great video footage of this. Nikki Vanek, Nay,
Nay.
Peyton, she set up Western Invasion 2, I think. So it was Racetrack, USS Horsewhip, Book of Maps, that was my band. And then there was one more, Desperately Waiting. That was the band we were touring with. But this whole room was just full of, it was the craziest show I've ever played here, seen here. People were getting chairs so they could stand up to see over the crowd, and that had just never happened to me before.
Yeah.
And easily one of the most incredible shows I've ever played.
What I was going to ask, or what I was going to bring up, is that in contrast to Doug, it's almost. I've heard you say this a couple times in the past weeks, but it's almost a boast that you've written 6 songs in your life, right?
Right. Yep. I have personally written 6 songs of my own, and that's it, because I think I am better suited to take Doug's creations, which are so much more thoughtful and experienced and just way better than I could ever achieve myself. And I just like to help chip away and get to, I think, where are you going with this? That's where I'm like, what do you want to say with this? And then we kind of build from there. I like to arrange. That's my favorite part of.
Have you had unsatisfying experiences with bringing a song to the fore in the past? Like, hey guys, because guys
with
writing
me?
music. Yeah. with
I've
you.
never even tried. The 6 songs I've written.
Not
have
in
all
this
been-
band, but I mean in the past. Like
Uh,
in any band, have you been like, oh well, geez, I'm not going to do that again?
I just always played with such talented people, that I would well, you have better songs. I play bass. I'll do my thing, you do yours, and then we'll get cool shows because your songs are amazing.
Yeah. I think you and I get to play this support role.
Absolutely.
That I don't know. For me as a drummer, I always have felt kind of like a support role. You're never going to see me take a drum
Absolutely.
solo. You might see me jump on stage and strangle a drummer if he does, but it's a support role. You got to be the backbone.
Yeah.
You don't have to always write the songs, be up front. There are people who are really great at that, i.e. Doug and Bacon together do it great.
Yes.
Whereas Bauman and I get to sit back here and keep the backbone, a little bit of embellishment here and there, but I love that.
It's taken me 4 times to get through it again because I always fall asleep on my couch. But I just got done rewatching the Eagles, the history of the Eagles, right? And I think it's Don Henley or maybe Glenn Fry who says it's being in a band, it's an imperfect democracy.
Yes.
It's more like a sports team where everyone's dependent on another, but not
Role-
everyone gets
role
to touch.
player.
But not everyone gets to touch the ball all the time.
Role player.
right? Now, Chris Bacon, there were definitely some Chris Bacon at the fore songs in the Volumen days, like Super Confident Guy and so on. Are you incubating something deep inside that's going to pop out on a Tuesday night practice?
He does actually have some really cool stuff.
I mean, I feel like nowadays I mostly just work on like sort of chord arrangements and tones. I'm just really into like the way certain tones fit together, and then some chord arrangements and stuff like that.
And
But
just to add to that really fast, you have a tonal quality to your voice too that makes harmonies ridiculous.
thanks.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that to me is another one of the things I really enjoy about Doug and Chris together
Yes.
forever, sonically joined at the hip. You know, their innate ability to harmonize together in a
Thanks.
beautiful way.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I mean, I kind of work on like some parts and some sort of not really songs, but like maybe fragments or like movements.
It's like a
And then-
riff, like a
yeah,
riff
like
for
kind
the
of
keyboard.
a riff or something like that, and then something where we can, you know, Doug and I'll do sort of Glee Club sometimes, which
We call it the Revelry Brothers.
You got to explain that a little bit more.
So
though.
it's kind of
Time Charlie's.
it's kind of where we just like, you know, just work on stuff together. We do stuff vocally, but we also like maybe not that, but show each other different parts and like see if we can't
I bet you do.
sort of join those parts together.
And cut.
I
See?
can leave.
I had a
if you
point
like.
there.
No.
But yeah,
A good
in
point.
general,
Well taken.
you know, song wise, like full songs, I just feel more like I'm better at providing like tones and then like, hey, okay, here's
Texture.
a part, texture, here's a part to get us from your part A to your part C or whatever, and stuff like that. Is it?
That's all right. I mean, do you feel like your
And
attitude
we're
has
done.
changed a little bit since you get older? Because when you're young and in a band, you're always trying to get your elbow in with your song, or at least most people.
I'm going
are.
to answer this for Chris.
Okay,
no,
thank you.
No.
it's not his personality.
Yeah, I just feel like in general, like the songs that I was like writing or ish writing with volume in, I never really found that light. You know, I felt like I was like sort of just shooting up into space, and it was fun, and I'm happy that I did all that stuff. But I feel like my true skill lies in providing these textures and harmonies and, you know, transitional parts and, you know, just some of the decor of the song, you know, and some riffs here and there. But it's the working together process that I get a lot more out of.
You're the dried arrangement to my, single
Well, I mean-
apartment.
There really are some bands. There are some bands that can really have everybody in the band being a songwriter, bringing things, or you work out everything where you're like, let's jam, let's see what we can come up with, and you're like, oh, that was a cool riff, let's work on that, and then we'll build from there. But in this band, and in many bands, there's always a chief songwriter and then the support cast, because you as a filmmaker, you know, like, you need a rigger, you need a grip, you need somebody to hold the boom, you need people
I would
to...
if there was a single bit of sound in my movies. You know.
But you know what I mean. Like, you need craft services. You need, you know, runners. Like, there are support to make the whole thing work. But it's usually like it starts with somebody's vision and then goes from there. And I like looking at just kind of seeing. Yeah, I would say,
it's
where are you going with this?
Yeah.
Like, how do we
I like just
make this?
Putting it on the table and be like, this is kind of what I came up with. What do you guys think? And
Well, and my interpretation
being a
can
DJ,
sometimes
it's like, oh,
be
let's
different than
produce
what
it.
you were actually intending.
and that's fine.
And that's fun.
And,
It's
yeah,
fun.
That's why it's kind
Do you
of this
think?
trust thing.
Do you think it's unfair that Glenn Frey demanded more money for him and Don Henley for their tour?
Not at
because
all.
You're in line with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm totally in line with that. Some people are really nice and equally share the songwriting royalties, but I mean, the bass player in the Eagles gets paid well.
Yeah.
He gets paid to hit that high note. And let
He didn't
someone
write
take it to the
Hotel
limit.
California.
No.
And, you know, you should get paid for the work you do. That's kind of how I feel about it. I don't think that any of those members are...
Slighted in this.
Yeah, or, well, I'm sure they may feel like it because when you're talking about like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. But they are compensated for their work.
Yeah.
It'd be
I
cool
mean,
to-
I'd love to
it'd be
quibble
cool.
about $100,000
I know, I would
with you
love
guys,
that.
by the
Exactly.
way.
I'd love to be
Roger that.
compensated
Because
for
I've
my
never
work.
seen it, not in my bank account, but I'd quibble with you guys if we had to about it.
We did get paid $200 for
Yeah. I had a
putting
pay-
some,
I had a
some-
PayPal error
some,
one time
that's-
for
that's-
$50,000, and they immediately took it away and called me.
Oh, that sucks. Bacon got us a couple of our songs in a horror movie in the background, and they gave us some $200.
Oh wow.
That's pretty cool.
and I think we're.
Axiom.
Sweatsuits, I
I
remember.
think we might be on the
We got some-
Thrasher website here pretty
Yeah,
soon too.
Yeah,
Like Thrasher Skateboards website?
Yeah.
that's pretty
Awesome.
cool. We might see $25 for that.
It's like a child. It's like a childhood
And
dream.
A couple
come
free
true.
shirts, whatever. It's just fun to be a part of those things.
It is.
How many more tunes
We
you
got like
left in
2
that
or 3
quiver?
songs.
Yeah. Is there another rock block in our future? Or?
Yeah, that's let's do who what will divide us is love.
This is,
kind of a-
this is one of my personal favorites.
I like this one. It's
Is that a Japanese translation of "Love Will Tear Us Apart"?
I was just gonna say it's an ode to Joy Division. Yes,
Is
Love
it?
Will Tear
Okay.
Us Apart. But I kind of like squashed it into the square peg of
Well, it was written
like
around.
cults.
It was written around the most current presidential election. We don't have to get into that, but
Right.
that I thought that was an
And I was-
informing part of the tone.
I was also watching a lot of cult movies like
Okay.
we all love each other and now we're killing each other.
Yeah.
I feel you.
You seem to think that you got it, caught like a cold and dropped in your pocket. All of us are contagious. It's going round. Funny is your logic, 'cause when you hit the floor, the dance got ironic. All of us are contagious. It's going round. What will divide us is love. This is how we roll. What will divide us is love. This is how we roll. Let's spill some drinks and go light up a fuse. Folks like us, so we got nothing to lose. All of us are contagious. It's going round. What will divide us is love. This is how we roll. What will divide us is love. This is how we roll. or you're just slurring your words. Cause I'm another missing person, so forget what you were. Come home, I'm a freaked out man. I'll catch you if I can. Your story is way too boring. Catch you if I can. Beep beep this red heart. It's just a house of cards. Your story is way too boring. Catch you if you can. Dearly departed has got in my way. And then appeared a sleeping dog, and it's shot to way. Come, there's food out, man. I'll catch you if I can. Your story is way too boring. Catch you if I can. Beep, beep, this red heart. You're just a house of cards. Your story is way too boring. Gone before it starts.
That's a hiney whooper. Now, is this going to be on the 4-track EP that we can expect shortly?
Yes.
Did you say Heine Whooper?
Maybe I did. I did say hiney whooper. It's radio talk for... called Spooned Out? Spooned
Yeah.
Out. Uh-huh. And you mentioned a garden. Is there a mention of a garden in there? No. I thought I heard about something, quote, from my garden.
So, can
came
I
from
give
my
like my
closet.
interpretation really quick before
Sure.
Doug even
Yeah,
says
this is the
anything?
fun
Yeah.
part. Like, what did
So,
you guys hear?
spooned out, when I first heard that, I thought of a person who was annoyed by their partner, who like
Tired of
Too
spooning?
much spooning.
like too much like well, and I decided like a demand.
Oh, literally,
well, you know what I mean?
spooned
Like a
out.
demand of like I'm
Cut
like
'em.
I'm spooned out right now.
I'm
I
done.
can't do this anymore.
The first thing I thought of was a yogurt.
Sure. Well, I thought
Damn it, where's my spoon?
Thought of a scoop, like a
Yeah, spooned out.
depleted
All right.
sort of thing. But the other thing I was thinking was that like a domestic relationship where like I'm dishwashed out, I'm cleaning the toilet out,
Interesting.
walking the dog out.
It is. Really.
So spooned out was like, nah, I'm spooned out. Like,
I like
no more spooning for you,
Yeah.
or at
Just
least
like-
for now.
Just like what we were talking about before, where it all comes out in the
But
wash.
Absolutely.
I don't really know if that was at all what you were thinking, but
It's kind of like well, originally it's kind of that when an old ghost comes back to haunt, like shit that small town or something that comes back to haunt you.
Like the phantom cover of Mustang Sally floating around in the
Yeah,
building
kind
at
of.
all
Yeah,
times.
yeah. But I guess the chorus is like ho hum, you're a spooned out man. So it's kind of a
and that's
Oh,
like,
completely
you're a
hollowed
boring
out.
dude.
Okay, spooned
And-
out.
right.
And so shit's coming back to haunt you.
Well,
Say
interesting.
love you. Sorry about that.
Before that song, I mentioned that it was a bit of a coincidence, or I thought that it was a coincidence. That song was called Spooned Out because I was, as it happens, I was just about to reach for this volume of poetry in my handbag called the Spoon River Anthology.
Oh, do tell.
Stay with me, fellas. Stay with me. The Spoon River
I'm down.
Anthology, published in 1916. It's a collection of free verse, basically people in a tiny town who are speaking from beyond the grave, confessing to things they did in life, settling little scores, after death and stuff like that. And I was wondering if, as a group here, we could respond to this poem, which is called Calvin
boy.
Campbell
feel so underprepared right now.
You look great, though.
Thank you.
Okay, you ready? This will just take a minute. I'm going to start turning mean if you don't let me get my Spoon River break in here, so just pipe down. Ye who are kicking against fate, tell me how it is that on this hillside, running down to the river, which fronts the sun and the south wind, this plant draws from the air and soil poison and becomes poison ivy. And this plant draws from the same air and soil sweet elixirs and colors and becomes arbutus, and both flourish. You may blame Spoon River for what it is, but whom do you blame for the will in you that feeds itself and makes you dockweed, Jimson, dandelion, or mullein, and which can never use any soil or air so as to make you jasmine or wisteria? So the idea here is that, it betrays a certain ignorance of plant biology, but the idea is that from the same soil, all of these different things can come. What is the special nutrient? Apart from the human community that makes being a musician in Missoula so great, what is in the air and soil here that really nourishes and informs what you guys do?
Well, if I may, I would say since we get to be in this garden, valley, whatever you want to call it, together, and we start to grow ourselves, you start to see your friend become the dandelion or whatever, and your other friend become the Jimson weed or whatever, and you feel like you have this place to be whatever you want to be. I feel like that sort of experience of growing together a little bit is what gives us the opportunity to maybe single ourselves out with who we want to be and what we want to grow into.
To add to that, I feel like, to me, and with music, it's there's a reason I just ended up being the dude who plays less notes than he does. Something that people have been awesomely complimentary about. I don't know. It's just a thing I do, but there's a predetermination, even though there's no predetermination. We may all come from the same valley, same soil, but the human part of it, that's the thing I just love about it. Try and replace a person in this band. Wouldn't happen. You know this with with Humpy, the different lineups, it changes, it morphs, it's all about the individual human element that brings what it does to, what sort of foliage is growing inside that band. Are you going to make a hops reference?
No, I wouldn't.
Barley, baby?
I might have thought about a garden reference, but I think that we're really lucky to be in this weird little melting pot that is Missoula that seems to generate these years of music. And even right now, let's be honest, I think we're in a little rock and roll slump right now in Missoula. We don't have the venues that are necessarily reaching out to local rock and roll right now. But that will come back.
Yeah, big shout out to Matt Olson, who is actually one of the people
trying to help do that, because these cyclical cycles happen in Missoula with music in general, but specifically with rock and roll. It just keeps going. I don't see it stopping. This town wants creativity in media, rock and roll, art, painting, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what your media is, I guess I'm trying to say, is this town is a special little place where we bring all of our weirdness together and we all get to do what we want to do. It doesn't matter if it sucks. If it makes you happy, that's great, man. Do it. But this town cultivates these kind of experiences that we're lucky to have as four dudes playing in a band.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Totally. I moved here from a place where it was a competition to be in a band.
With
I'm not going to
Laramie?
say. No, I'm not going to say. Yes, it was, but and then we came here and I'm like, wow, the metal dudes are watching the nerd rockers.
I'll make sure to let
perform.
the 7 people in Laramie know not to listen to this.
And now we're going to go see the girl punk band, and after that we're going to watch the hip hop band. It's just, right? No?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If someone's creative, probably going to. It's a good town everyone supports that.
And we were lucky enough to be here in the Jays days, most of us. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying. It's like, okay, we have a show. We need bands. We don't care what your genre is.
Yep. Not at all.
And the majority of the audience goers don't care either. It's almost better
Fun.
that way
Fun.
because it's like, oh, maybe I wouldn't have gone if it was an all metal show or an all, electro pop show or rap show or whatever. But there was so much like
Crossover.
fusion
Yeah.
there.
Think
like
of the
just things
longevity of Total
jamming.
Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of that festival. That thing went on for 10 years, 15 years, and it was so mixed bag of tricks that I think it took all of us as rock and rollers and gave us what we loved, but it brought all these random folks who don't really go out to music, or they're like, yeah, I kind of like this, but I don't like that, and they came into they watched everything for years and years and years.
My favorite times out, at festivals or even just a general show, when they feel closer to a barbecue, like just a hang,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where there's some bands playing, and it doesn't, at that point, it doesn't really matter because everybody's just there to be part of just a hang.
Yeah.
It's not
Drink beer.
meant to be anything bigger than
We
that,
all like
but it
music,
is.
food, and
I
beer.
mean,
Yeah.
it's just nice to have people that you can relate to and hang out with.
Fellowship and community.
I found that I really love being in kind of a sleepover or camping situation where music
Absolutely.
is involved.
Yes.
Where you're actually kind of, you don't just go home at the end of the day. You
No hurry to get there or leave.
Yep.
Nope. Well, listen, I don't know about you, Big Al Pels, a.k.a. Statler or Waldorf, but I feel like I was quite lucky to be here today to participate in this edition of the Ballroom Chronicles.
I couldn't agree more.
It's,
It's just sort of like being above the board shop, only less sweaty.
There's a lot more airflow in here.
Yeah, there
It's
is.
beautiful.
And the
Thank goodness.
I mean, not that the drums don't sound good up there, but they sound really
They sound good in
The
here.
drums
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
unreal up
Awesome.
here. I just
Most-
keep waiting for Dreamer to give me more of that Dreamer shuffle he was warming up to.
Yeah. They call it dad bod, brother.
Let's hear the Dreamer Shuffle.
That
Let's
was like
isolate
the
that
Purdy
thing.
shuffle meets the
It
Dreamer.
is the Purdy shuffle.
You got it?
Yeah.
You got a few
mixed
bars
with the
for us?
Rosanna
let's hear it.
shuffle.
Thank you.
I mean,
Right.
stay in the pocket, son.
Well, I'm stoked you guys came down.
He's a
Thanks,
Virgin
Matt Olson.
link collector.
Yeah,
Big Al,
huge,
We got one
huge,
last tune.
Yeah, we got
and
one
then
last
we'll,
tune.
then
And
we'll wrap it.
huge.
Thank you all
from,
for letting
yeah.
me relax.
Yeah.
Well, from the
Enjoy
bottom of
your
our heart,
musics.
though, our Massive
Absolutely.
FM heart, thank you to Andy and Al, and most certainly Matt Olson for having us.
give it up for
This has
Matt.
been
Yeah,
awesome.
Right. Good job,
Making it
Matt.
sound real.
Absolutely
Thanks.
painless.
Well, we get to talk more afterwards, right?
Thank
Okay, coming at you from upstairs at Union Hall, a little bit later in the afternoon than when we started on May 27th, 2018. KFGM Ballroom Sessions, Session 1.1, Statler, Waldorf, and Mass FM. Let it rip, fellas. Thanks again for having us.
Thank you.
Over and out.
Play that funky
This is
music.
called Cover Your Eyes.
Tattooed your face, I bet you're sleeping. Cover your eyes and let us in. Let your game replay. Bet you the someone. Cover your eyes. This piece puzzles you. Well, I'm strung out today and tomorrow too. Cover your eyes, play with fire and fools. You sit and chew the fat, but don't swallow your pride. Cover your eyes, choke on every bite. I'll help you get it wrong. Let's reinvent the wheel. You're the last smoking voice. How does it feel? or make tomorrow wait. Release yourself and no one else will cover up your eye. Low, you get it wrong. Let's freedom them through you. You're the last smoking voice. How does it feel? Thank you, guys.
You are listening to
105.5
on your FM dial.